All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And I am joined by... hold on. I'm sorry, Jerome. Go ahead. Go for it, man.
Oh, just technical difficulties. No,
Yeah, go
Jerome
ahead.
Bourgeois, co-founder, co-creator, Movers Shakers Unlimited. How's everything going, man? How's your week?
It's been going good. Shout out to those of you out there. It's Mother's Day weekend. Hopefully you guys have already had your plans, or perhaps you already are lining up what your plans will be for celebrating the moms out there. Those matriarchs of the family. Um, Hope you guys, as I said, are doing well out there. As always, just running down a couple of minutes. Be sure, if you like these videos that we have here on Saturdays, which are known as This Week in Review, covering many of the bullet points or news stories that have made the rounds in entertainment industry. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos and these breakdowns. And also, of course, be sure to make sure that you stay involved in the conversation. We do have a hashtag involved with this show for This Week in Review. You can find it down below. So TWNRMNSU. So This Week in Review, Movers and Shakers Unlimited. So without further ado, I want to hop into one of the stories that did make the rounds this week. And it is a highly anticipated fourth season of a well-known Netflix series, and that is none other than Stranger Things. So this week we had a pretty, I guess you can say, a pretty cryptic trailer, Jerome,
Yep.
of what we can expect in this coming season. For those of you that haven't had a chance to see it, you can find it on YouTube now. It basically gives a I guess it gives us a look at perhaps the some past history of 11, and her time spent um, being a part of that program that we are aware that she was a part of in developing her abilities and her powers. So Jerome, in terms of what they showed us, because there were it seemed to be a lot of emphasis on numbers, and we even got a return of Papa from season 1, who may or may not be dead. We didn't really see it happen. I mean, we saw him, taken down by the antagonist, the creature, in season 1, but we didn't see a body afterwards. So you could arguably say that he might make a return. What are your thoughts on what was shown?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that. I guess I'm kind of glad it was more of a teaser because I don't like when trailers, they show too much. But yeah, I was kind of shocked a little bit. I was just like, oh, I guess they're trying to bring it back to like kind of like with the tie into the first season and see, I guess, where that program goes. I guess I was, at least when they had that other teaser before with what was the guy? Was it Dave Harbour's character or whatever?
Yeah, yeah.
The how he's still alive. He's supposed to be in Russia, and half of it's supposed to be in Russia or something. So I think that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, I'm just assuming they're gonna somehow tie that into it and just go deeper into that because to still make that that homage to like the 80s lore and pop culture lore, and also just with the Cold War and all those. I mean, that's what makes this show so interesting. It's like how they're really bringing it back to that time period and all those those themes and how they can explore that further. But yeah, it's also there's also something to be said about like a lot of these actors now. They're finally getting older, so I mean I don't know how many more seasons they can keep doing, unless they just want to keep following them as they get older. But yeah, it definitely looks. It looks like they're trying to bring it back and explore that programs further. So
And
I'm excited.
I was gonna say, in talking about, as I said, some of those cryptic moments, I'm gonna skip forward. Here's the trailer for those of you that are curious, and it gives us, as I said, implications of like various numbers. And if we recall from, I know there are theories going out there based on what we had I guess you could, what was it, season 2, where we had the introduction of another character that was a part of the program, another girl.
I
So
think so.
perhaps in the same vein, we see other kids that are a part of this program and are in this facility. So maybe that means that I know the theory that's going out there is that these numbers allude to perhaps numbers of those that those kids represent in the program, and maybe they will make a comeback in force versus just one character. Maybe it will be a collection of them. Maybe our character, the girl from season 2, has found some of the other people in the program and is just trying to recruit 11 to join them. Who knows? But yeah, as I said, there were a lot of cryptic elements that leaves many fans, constantly speculating about, what's happening. As I said, you have this moment here with Papa, making a return. Will he? Is this a implication that he will actually return, or is it going to be more along the lines of maybe a flashback? I know there has also been theories that perhaps in going inwards for 11, maybe thinking back on how she developed her powers in the past will be a way that she can perhaps gain her powers back, because as you will know, and I will let me see, I will back out of this for the sake of putting up another another marker here for spoilers. We know very well that from that season, I try to be careful of spoiling for people, even if you are a couple of seasons behind. But this happened just last season, that she did lose her abilities. So perhaps that will be a way that she is able to get them back. Who knows? Said, Jerome, did you have any, final thoughts on that before we move on to our next story?
No, I mean, I'm just excited for the next season. It's funny because I remember you kind of got me into that show, because I remember I remember when I first heard about Stranger Things, I was like, okay, looks interesting. Like, I heard other people say it's decent, and then I remember you were watching it, and I was like, oh, I'll check it out one day. And I was like, nah, it's pretty nice. And yeah, and also what's his name? Sam. Yes, you and Sam. We had the shirt on at Comic-Con. Shout out to Sam
Okay.
Leggett.
Shout out, man. Shout out to JVS, Sam Leggett.
Yeah. And ever since then, I was just like, no, I just love it, because I just love the elements of Goonies and Spielberg, and I mean, it's like Steven Spielberg meets Stephen King. That's basically the pitch.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I'm just wondering how many more seasons they really can go. I will say it is kind of weird, just in general, like when there's been a break between seasons, like just getting back in, it's kind of, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like forgot some of the stuff, so I was just like, man, I gotta get back into it. So you kind of like forget certain things. I'm just like, but no, I remember key moments, but I'm just like, yeah, just the same with like Master of None season 3 is coming out the end of this month. I'm kind of like, man, it's been a little bit of a while, so you just gotta get reacclimated. So
no, I get you, because I mean that's one of the unfortunate side effects, or I should say the unfortunate things that can happen, even in lieu of streaming, even if you
so
have
many shows, that's why.
there's so much, there's so much stuff, and it's hard to remember. So this person died, this person came back. Like,
you're like,
when
yeah,
did that happen?
Go back and rewatch some
episodes. Right, that's what happened. This person, took the place of this person, or this person bit the bullet because of this happening. Oh, they lost their powers. Oh, they got their abilities back. When did that happen? Like, yeah, I get you. Like, sometimes it's just hard just to keep track. It's just too much out there.
But I will say, no, I am looking forward. I am looking forward to more like homages to like 80s and early 90s movies. Because I will say, what I did like about the third, was the last season, with the whole like Russian Terminator. I was like, this is hilarious, right? Man. I mean, basically they made the dude like a Russian version of the Terminator.
Right.
And I was like, but it makes sense in this show because it's like that's the whole point, like that homage to all these different classic 80s and early 90s. Well, yeah, actually, well, Terminator, that was true, that was 80s, but yeah.
But I mean, it brings another question too. It's good that you brought that up because like there's so many hanging threads. I mean, aside from Eleven's powers, there's brain farting the surrogate father's name.
But David Harbour,
Yeah.
yeah, the actor, yeah.
But like, that character, we thought that he was long dead, but I mean, those of you that recall, there was another teaser trailer that came out a little while ago. I want to say, gosh, has it been over a year? I feel like it was a long time ago. But like they gave like a quick clip of him, in like an prison, in I guess kind of like in a camp of sorts, like in a prison of sorts, working on a railroad system. So, again, Stranger Things with those cryptic, trailers that don't really go into much detail, but
that's how trailers should be.
Cause you just to constantly speculate.
Should be.
So
don't give away too much in the trailer. That's what I like. Don't give the whole story away in the trailer. That's what. Anyway, okay.
Fair. But yeah, no. As I said, extremely, intrigued by what will come of this coming season. Even cast members have teased that this is supposed to be the most gruesome and frightening season or darkest season yet. I mean, I remember they said that about last season. And to be fair, I mean, it was, for Stranger Things, it was, I was surprised at some of the places that they went to, genre wise, like, that they, in some cases, went as far as they did. So,
what do you mean? With like the blood, like the gore,
yeah,
like,
all of it, yeah.
Exactly. You got to remember that goes back to 80s.
It does.
Remember when Gremlins came out? That was PG. But how is it PG if you put a gremlin in a microwave and it explodes? That's PG. But if it was a human, it probably would have been R-rated.
But here's the thing. Yeah. That's the key.
So that's what I'm saying. They can do that.
I know, but I'm saying like we also had that same element where we saw, where people were like decomposing and things like that. So that's a little different than creatures being destroyed. So but I think it may be more so just that idea of we've watched these characters grow up right before our eyes, from season to season, and so the fact that they are growing up and they're becoming teenagers provides the license for obviously the stories to get far more mature and far darker than perhaps they were able to do in the first season when they were younger. So I think it might be a result of that, perhaps, because you have a similar thing, and you could arguably say in like Harry Potter, for example, where you have far darker elements that were introduced later down the line because obviously the characters are far older, so it provides license for them to go that far.
Or just the story warrants it anyway. Yeah, I mean, you can still have. I mean, you can still have movies with younger kids and R-rated material, but yeah, it depends on the material. Anyway,
for sure. But switching gears, I wanted to talk about a story, and actually, Jerome, I'll have you take the lead on this because I know this was a major one that you had come across. Is what's happening with a film that Mark Wahlberg is headlining called Infinite, is apparently skipping theaters and making its way to Paramount Plus. So can you take it away?
Yeah, I just thought this would be interesting to at least briefly talk about because I mean, this is like a big movie Mark Wahlberg and Antoine Fuqua directed, and it was supposed to go to theaters, but it's just interesting showing the like I said, this trend again with the streaming wars. It's going to Paramount Plus because they're trying to compete with Disney and Netflix and now HBO Max. So I just find like I said, this is definitely the trend that's happening. I'm a little shocked that they still didn't want to release it in theaters also to do that, but I guess they're just doing this to really compete in another way, build their subscribers. But I mean, I haven't seen a trailer, nothing yet.
I don't think there is one.
I don't think there was, but
yet.
It sounds like it could be a cool movie. I mean, it sounds like it could be interesting. And like I said, Mark Wahlberg, he's obviously he's a A-lister, and Antoine Fuqua, he's A-list director. So it's just kind of interesting how this is the turn that it's taking. So I was just I just thought that's noteworthy because you're seeing, like I said, you're seeing more of these movies now released on streaming services to compete. But it was a little shocking that it wouldn't, be in theaters. I mean, unless it was at like, if it was sold to like Netflix or Amazon, because I mean that's what they did with the Coming to America sequel, and that was on Amazon. So yeah, I just thought it was noteworthy to see that because it's not really normal, but.
And I was going to say, it begs a question too. Will it kind of provide a tease of perhaps what we'll see? If it is successful, because how it is, and when it comes to things in Hollywood, they'll experiment. Someone will experiment with something, and if it really catches on, it ends up becoming a trend. I mean, we've seen it, far many times in other things and other examples. In thinking of examples in the last decade or so, or I guess the last few decades, is I remember when The Matrix came out. When it first came out, it shocked everyone in terms of what it introduced, and having the wire work and all of that stuff, and the slow mo, and what should say bullet time. And then it just seemed like everybody was doing bullet time. Like Charlie's Angels was doing bullet time.
Not to that extent though, but yeah, the 360.
I know, but
and
to be fair, and a lot of people don't give credit for this. To be fair too, I know Matrix got those of you out there. You guys credit the Matrix. It was in Blade first.
Yeah, okay, but that's not the same thing though. Matrix had the 360. That's the difference. The whole 360. Blade, they had that. They
I know. I just have
there were other slow motion stuff too, but you're right. Blade had that, but how they did it in the Matrix, no one did it in live action like that. That's the difference. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's all good, man. Sometimes I just get in like a soft spot when it comes to Blade, because I feel like Blade always seems to be like the bastard child of Marvel, where like
it that's just people who don't know, man.
I know, but it just doesn't get the due that it's due.
I saw Blade in theaters, man. I remember that was the year of like
I would never forget that.
Actually.
Yeah, so yeah, shout out to Blade. You don't get that film franchise doesn't get its due, but it provided a lot of firsts for the superhero genre that we enjoy. But yeah, moving on. So we have that story. I'm moving on to another one that I feel is a great segue, because we're talking about how there's a film that is trying to skip its run in theaters and going to the streaming platform. And now we're talking about, a theater that may be making a return, which is Arclight Cinemas.
Yeah, Arclight.
So well, let's put that up.
Yeah, I just thought this was important because it's just showing that there is interest out there to save like the Cinerama Dome. I mean, that's real. I mean, Arclight Cinemas. I don't know if you ever. I mean, I'm assuming you probably been to. Have you ever been to one of their theaters?
I have not, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, anyway, like in LA, well, I mean, that Cinerama Dome, that's like classic. That's a classic location to go see a movie, especially in LA. It's been in films. I mean, you saw it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I mean, I remember I saw The Dark Knight there. I mean, and they have Q&A sessions with filmmakers. It's just like a historic, monument in Hollywood. And it was just sad to see that because of the pandemic, Arclight Cinemas was shutting down. So I know a lot of filmmakers and industry people. They're trying to, they're hopefully all, a lot of them are saying like, yeah, well, hopefully someone's just gonna at least buy, save Arclight Cinemas, or at least the Cinerama Dome. So I just thought this article was interesting because it's showing like there was some interest in that. Some interest.
Right.
In that
so Greg Marcus, who's CEO of Marcus Corp, he was quoted, in saying the article that you're mentioning, when he found out, about them going, dark, so to speak, and closing, he was like, what? Arclight is not reopening? He was like, Arclight is reopening. I'll take that bet with anybody who wants to bet me on that. Those theaters are so productive nationally that they will not, that they will reopen. I just don't know who will control them. We certainly welcome those discussions. So that begs the question, maybe, he wants to put his, hat in the, his hat in the ring of perhaps taking over Arclight, perhaps. Who knows?
And they did have one, and they had one around here. I mean, they shut it down. The one in Bethesda, Montgomery Mall. I didn't actually go to that one, but the brand is it's like I said, it's not at the. I wouldn't say it's at the same level as like iPick, because I mean that's shout out to iPick, that's to get back. But it's one of those premier end theaters that it's just really the seating is great, the sound, the picture quality, obviously the they have obviously assigned seating. I mean they had assigned seating back in the day before. I mean I know a lot of other places started doing it in the U.S. And it's because of that filmmaker relationship that they would have, at least in Hollywood. I don't know about the other theaters throughout the nation, but the one specifically in LA, like the Cinerama Dome, like they would have those special screenings, and that was, real film lovers love that theater, and the memories there. I mean, like I said, when I lived in LA, I saw a few films there, so I'll always remember that. So I'm glad to hear that, like hopefully, like I said, if someone could at least save that one, that would be great, because it's just a great location to watch a movie, and it's so unique, the dome. So I mean, it's good to hear.
For sure, for sure. So switching gears, guys, while we're still, taking on that topic of, films, we did this week also get a tease of what we can expect of the MCU, of course. This week we got a video kind of, alluding to our love of the movies that was sent out by Marvel, and them giving kind of, I guess you can say, if we're talking within the context of what we're saying with content, we see it a lot of times. For those of you that, attend conventions, particularly San Diego Comic-Con, that they did a sizzle reel of shorts where they, in essence, gave a tease of, provided a highlight of everything that's come thus far. Because a lot of times when they do for those of you that don't know, when they do their slate for either DC or Marvel, a lot of times they'll open their presentation with a video like this, where it'll tease what came before, and then they'll kind of highlight what's coming next, so that way they can, get into more detail about those individual products. So with that being said, because I'm going to pull up the trailer itself, so that way we can dig into some of these titles. What are your thoughts, Jerome?
No, I thought it was great that they released this. I was like, about time that they're giving us some updates. And it's great that they showed some footage of Eternals, even though I still want to see this trailer.
Right.
Show us the damn trailer, but come on. Because I know it's ready. I have some inside sources knowing that I know it's ready, but they just had to, obviously with the pandemic, I guess they wanted to wait. They're probably gonna wait until Black Widow, like around when that's released, maybe to show it. I'm assuming. But anyway, no, but I thought it was cool though with the titles, because I was like, yeah, okay, cool. They're showing the actual dates, and I was like, oh wow, they're really showing us the new title for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever.
Right. So let me get into that.
Makes
I'm gonna
sense.
pull it up. Yeah, it does make sense. So give me 1 second, pull this up so we can get right into these titles. So just as you said, we got a indication or a tease of. Oh, let me do this. Hold on 1 sec. Yay, technical difficulties. Here we go. But yeah, we did get, as I said, a trailer of this tease, and I want to jump ahead to going into what they revealed to us. So, like, initially, we open with, as I said, a tease of all these prior films that we know from prior phases in the MCU, and it's you have we have the voice of Stan Lee playing over it, where he's talking about what Marvel is all about in terms of their characters. And I want to skip ahead right to these titles. So they do brief clips of Black Widow and Shang-Chi, of course, providing the title. And just as you said, they give us a breakdown of a quick tease of Eternals and those dates. But then it goes right into additional info about these other films. So right here, I mean, we have Spider-Man. We know that that's coming in December. It begs the question now that they have put it out there in the ether, when will we see a teaser? Because, while looking at title cards is great, it is coming out this year. So maybe by this, let's see, we're in May, maybe by July, maybe
I think we can.
Hopefully by
I
that
think we
time,
can wait. I
maybe
think
we
we're
get
gonna have to
one.
wait because it's the fourth movie to release in this year. So they're probably gonna go in order. But anyway,
Yeah, but I mean, it's
I think they're
been.
not. Yeah, well, I think they're gonna wait. I think they're gonna wait. I think they're gonna wait. But yeah,
But yeah, like I'm like speaking. I know you were talking about Eternals. I'm like, give me a Spider-Man teaser. I want a Spider-Man teaser
I think
because
they'll probably wait a little bit because, like I said,
especially I was gonna say, especially with everything that we had. I don't know if you saw that recent video or interview that Andrew Garfield had.
no, I didn't see that.
Okay, so he was promoting another film or project, and I'm brain farting on the podcast that he appeared on. It happened. I want to say it happened this week, where they asked him, the interviewer asked him point blank, like, listen, like, dude, like, are you in this movie? Are you in Spider-Man 3? And in but so many words, Garfield denied, and was like, you know what? Like, I haven't been called for it. Like, I don't know what people are talking about. Like, he was like in heavy denial about it. So he either is a major, fibber when it comes to the projects that he's a part of due to perhaps an NDA, or maybe he really isn't in it. But there have been other actors that have confirmed that other folks are going to be in it. I mean, they couldn't keep Alfred Molina quiet about being a part of this project, and he's like spoiled a lot of the elements that are going to happen. And even Jamie Foxx, like no one even
It's
expected him to
obvious.
be in it.
Yeah, it's obvious
It's
he's gonna be.
obvious.
It's obvious. They're just trying to like save face because they released so much info. But I'm hoping that they have a lot of surprise. I mean, I'm sure there'll still be some surprises in there. Maybe they'll have Kingpin in there. Like it'll be just like Into the Spider-Verse. Who knows?
Man,
It'll be dope. And then they could bring him in. And then Daredevil. That would be dope if they had Kingpin and Daredevil. And then they could transition.
those two. Or here's another
Like,
thing. I mean, out of those series, I mean, there are a lot of elements that I did enjoy, even with the casting. So I hope that they're able to pull them over to the MCU. The actor who played Bullseye, like that Bullseye was awesome. Like, hopefully they can bring him over to the MCU. Elektra from that series is awesome. So I hope they bring her over. I mean, we didn't, again, going back to science fiction and even comic book tropes, we did not see her body in Defenders, so she may very well still be alive. So yeah, like it, hopefully there's some other surprises that we have yet to see, but yeah, I'm just so intrigued by what that is going to look like. Okay, going forward, I'll pause it again. We got, of course, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. A lot of this we already know. I was fortunate enough. I was in Hall H, first row of that Marvel slate, so I was there front and center to take in everything that they talked about with this film. Knowing that Wanda Maximoff, she is making a return to that film and working in tandem with Doctor Strange. It still remains to be seen if it means that she is going to be a villain of sorts, perhaps to start, and then redeeming herself later, or if she is indeed working with Strange the entire time and not switching sides, over the course of the film.
I'm sure.
But I'm guessing the former, though, based on what we know happened in WandaVision. I'm going to assume the former, because that would be a far more interesting story.
But the thing is, I think eventually, like, even if she does become like the antagonist or whatever at the beginning, like I put money on it, she'll eventually be like, oh, now I'm woken up.
Of course.
And then there's really some other. It'll be like a Civil War type of thing, like, oh,
Of course.
But it's fine. It'll be different. I just hope. My thing is, like, that's cool. I just hope they bring in like some new badass. I mean, they could obviously continue with what's his name, Mordo Ejiofor's character. What was his name again? Mordo. Yeah. Like, continue with that. I think that would be I'm sure he's probably gonna be in it. But I hope they bring. I just want them to bring in, like, I don't know, maybe it's Mephisto or whatever, or maybe they bring Dormammu back. So I want to see more of that. That's what I'm interested. But I'm sure they're gonna focus. It's probably gonna focus on this multiverse stuff, and then maybe somehow they'll fit.
And I mean, we're seeing allusions to it already. I mean, it started in WandaVision. However, It looks like, based on all the zany and crazy stuff that's happening in Spider-Man, that much of what has happened in WandaVision bleeds over into Spider-Man
He's supposed to be
No
in
Way
there.
Home.
He's supposed to have a cameo in it, I think, at least. Dr.
Yeah,
Strange.
yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm saying even in his own feature in the third installment, that there's going to be some allusion to what Wanda did in WandaVision, bleeds over into Spider-Man, which explains all the craziness that's happening in that film. But here's the thing that's super meta is with this film, Doctor Strange, we have the original franchise director
I know,
of
directly.
Spider-Man,
It's
Sam Raimi.
hilarious.
So
Right
I'm
after.
I'm really fascinated to see what he's going to throw in there himself, to allude to maybe his Spider verse. Maybe, I mean, I know we're going to also have it, likely have it in the third Spider-Man film, but will we see other elements of it in Doctor Strange? And furthermore, will we see live action versions of what they do in the animated form for that, Disney Plus What If series? It'll give them an opportunity to kind of explore live action versions of what they do animation wise. So moving on, you have, of course, Thor, Love and Thunder. There are interesting elements to this too, because we're going to have the mighty Thor. Natalie Portman is making her return as Jane Foster, and she's going to be back as the female Thor, known as the Mighty Thor. And I find this so hilarious, Jerome, because if you recall, a couple of years ago, we were at a con and we were speaking with a gentleman who, by the name of Jason Aaron, who had ridden the Mighty Thor. And
He was
we
talking
had
about
just talked about that, just a couple of years ago. Hey man, what if they ever do your story? And we were like, he was like, oh, that'll never happen. And look where we are. Look where we are. We now have a legit adaptation of his story. But there's another caveat to this, which is also, well, a couple of them actually. I mean, we have Christian Bale coming back, well, kind of coming back, but he's going to be in this film as the antagonist, as Gore the God Butcher, which is, one of the coolest, Thor villains, in recent memory. And then you also have Russell Crowe, who spoiled recently that he is going to be playing Zeus. So, with all these elements that are at play,
you got
in
some
this
cameos from the Guardians too. They're supposed to be in there at least,
and that as well too, which makes sense, because if we're thinking of, well, no, I'm just saying, even despite the continuation of Endgame, if we're thinking about the whole purpose of Gore the God Butcher, he's going after gods, he's going after these heightened figures, or these larger than life figures. So, in essence, could that also mean that he's going after Quill too? Because even though he doesn't have his powers anymore, he technically is
like half
a demigod, half a celestial. So maybe, that'll play a factor in there too, which would be interesting. But even aside from that, what are your thoughts of, all those elements? I know you just mentioned, Guardians being in here. What are your thoughts on the things that, may come into play for this film?
No, I think it's going to be amazing. I mean, I have faith in it, because like I said, it just shows, like, if people like, if people come out and they see, see the movie, see whatever entry, or an entry does really well. I mean, like, you get a fourth movie in a franchise. I mean, this is the fourth entry for a solo character in the MCU. So I mean, that already speaks miles about how successful the last one was. But I mean, there's the fact that this movie is actually coming out is pretty amazing that they're even going there. So I mean, I know Taika was saying that he thinks this is gonna. Well, he was hyping it up, like he thinks this is gonna be the best Thor, or one of the best ones in the MCU period. So I mean, he's proven himself, so we'll see.
He has, but it's I always take that with a grain of salt. I mean, no one is going to say, "Oh man, my film is going to be, horrible. It's going to be the worst movie
but
ever."
not everyone hypes up their stuff like that, though. That's what I'm saying. So that's the difference.
I suppose. Like I said, I still take it with a grain of salt. My thing that I would say is, even though there are many intriguing elements, just as I mentioned before, that are going to be in this fourth installment. However, one thing that I think will be interesting is, going back to what we were talking about of trends and following those trends. Marvel may very well do it, for themselves too. And just as you said, this is the fourth installment that they've had thus far, in the shared universe. And not to jinx it, I mean,
for a solo character, yeah.
Yeah, if it doesn't, work out the way that they intended, or make the amount of money that they wanted to, Captain America is still in development. Are they going to pull the plug or pull the brakes on, that fourth installment if, this one, doesn't do the business that they wanted to? And, all signs are pointing to it's going to do well. But again, I throw that caveat out there because it's just interesting to see, how sometimes studios make a pivot based on, risk that, not risk, but things that they, projects that they throw out there. And, it under all on paper, it looks like it's going to do well just based on how prior installments have done. But just for whatever reason, a certain installment just doesn't catch the audience the right way. So, sometimes it can go in the other direction. So we'll see.
I think if it doesn't go the way they want, which I doubt, I think it's like
I doubt
almost
too,
every
but
movie. I mean, every movie that the Marvel's put out, even the ones that aren't as critically acclaimed and people want to say aren't as good, which even the worst one is still good to me. I mean, whatever, that's another debate, but they still do well. So in the end, it's about how much money they make. They just might make pivots, but I think if anything, I don't think it would affect if say this movie didn't the way they wanted it to. I don't think it would affect Captain America 4 as much. I think it would just affect if there's another Thor entry, because the Captain America movies, they've done well already, so I think they look at it based on the franchise, because as we go to the next one, or once we get to the next Captain Marvel film, even though I like Captain Marvel, they pivoted now as the Marvel, so it's not just focusing on her, and that's probably because they want to switch it up, or they could have just called it Captain Marvel too, or just focus on
they
that.
could have, and that's actually a great segue. So
and they changed the film, and also you got to notice some of these solo franchises, some of them they'll stick to the same filmmaker, but some they keep switching in and out. So that also
and I do have a thought on that, because someone brought something up about that. I can't remember where I heard it, but it was fascinating to see the trend on that. But first, before we hop into that idea, we do, as you had mentioned prior, we do have a new title for the trailer for, or I should say the sequel for Black Panther, and that's going to be Black Panther Wakanda Forever. We were just, talking about it, last week in the prior episode, about what would they do with, this character, and how would they go about doing this story without having a title character. And we were coming up with, obviously all types of theories or guesses of how they could go about it. But, in the spirit of that, and in the spirit of, remember me talking about what Lapita had mentioned before, about being in the spirit and being respectful of the franchise. This plays into, what she was mentioning before, of being, spiritually, correct and emotionally correct. I can't think of a better way to, find a way to explain how the story can go forward than, highlighting the place, that Black Panther protects and rules of Wakanda, because that character, is a character in and of itself, that place, that destination. So being able to provide it in that way allows you to still make it about the place, and not necessarily, providing, all the weight to, the character itself. So what are your thoughts on the title?
Yeah, I mean, I think we already discussed this a whole bunch already, but I would just say that I think it's also, they're doing this on purpose to transition to the series that Ryan Coogler is going to develop too. And it makes sense. It's smart, because if you're going to focus more on Wakanda, then you have a series about it. later, this is a good transition to really be like, okay,
And I mean, they are
hype people
doing
up.
a show already. They're doing a series as it stands already with the Dora Milaje. So what better way to kind of introduce that and to highlight that than making it about Wakanda itself, which I will say plays into the theory that I was talking about before of having people share that title. I know there have been theories out there of maybe they'll introduce a new character maybe, and I'm not to say that may not happen, but in keeping in line with the title of Wakanda Forever, having characters that we know and love share the title will make it more so about them as a unit, as a people, as a group, taking on that mantle, for the world. So we'll see. As I said, it could be wrong, but considering the title, I don't know. It might play into the theory. Don't get me wrong, a long, stretching theory, mind you, but a theory nonetheless that may come to be. All right, so moving onwards, we have the Marvels. So just as you were saying, could very well be Marvel too, but as it's indicated in the symbol at the end with the S, we have Miss Marvel that's joining it, and speaking of WandaVision, we will have Photon. It begs the question if she'll go by Photon because she's had so many titles, in the comics. But we will have 3 Marvels in this show. So I know you were commenting slightly on it before, but thinking further on it, what do you hope to expect from this film or this franchise?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, I was reading. I don't know the exact release date of Ms. Marvel, but I mean, is it supposed to come out later this year, or I don't know. Like I was reading.
So it says November 11th, 2022.
No, but I'm saying Miss Marvel, the TV series. I was reading that they were trying to release
Oh,
that
right.
before. I think that might be coming out before this, because that's another thing they're not
I
talking. They're not talking about
believe
all the shows in this. They're just talking about the movies.
I could be wrong on this, but since it's in production, it's already ongoing. I would say a
I
good
read something
guess
that it
is
was the end of this
that it's
year.
later this
That's what
year.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I was
So
gonna say.
exactly. So, um, yeah, I think that's gonna be cool. I just really like how they're doing this now. They're forcing you to watch these shows and then they're tying them in. Um, so I just always think it's interesting. At least and Marvel, they're pretty consistent with this. They're just getting smarter, and they've been smart, but they just just improving on it. Just when they make a sequel, they're not just trying to make it like they're not trying to just make it a continuation, a standard continuation of whatever that character was doing, and focus maybe on one character. So maybe focus on several characters, or maybe you get a different perspective, or whatever. Like they're always trying to find a way to like add to whatever the existing character is doing, and what their story is, and what they're uh, I guess exploring in that world. But then also and then introducing other characters, or maybe introduce a character somewhere else and then you have them team up. So it's like you're getting different types of genre, subgenres within this genre. And yeah, I mean, they have a different writer and director. It's a female. It's going to be the first African American female director directing that movie, a MCU movie. So I think she wrote for was it Watchmen, the TV series. So yeah, they're switching it up. So that's good.
And I was going to say one other thing that will be interesting, going forward. You're talking about you were just commenting on characters that will leave, a TV show, a Disney Plus show, and then make their way into the cinematic universe. And I'll be fascinated to see how the first character that does that, how that will work, because one could say the best way to go about it is to still have a story cohesive enough where the audience member doesn't get lost in having that character introduced into the cinematic universe. It should still function in a way where, and when you're watching the movie can still function on its own without you having seen the TV show. And then the TV show basically acts as, just a deeper a deeper introduction to that story. Do you know what I'm saying? Because we as fans and I know others out there, we consume everything that Marvel does, whether it's their TV shows or their films. However, we can't assume that everyone does that. You're going to have your casual moviegoers that are not going to see every single thing that Marvel puts out. And I mean, in case of point, my mom, other relatives that I have, they love the Marvel movies, but they don't always check out the TV shows. And it's not to say that they wouldn't enjoy watching them. They would. It's just that maybe they just don't have access to Disney Plus. I mean, believe it or not, guys, you have folks out there who do not have access to some streaming platform. So you can't assume that they are keeping up with every single series that comes out there. So do you try? Are you going to just assume that people have seen everything, or are you going to try to make it seamless for someone who is just keeping up with the films and not necessarily the streaming shows? So that way you're not alienating casual moviegoers that are just checking out the films. Obviously you can have the streaming shows there as a deeper understanding of the characters, but it won't be incumbent upon you to have seen those series, hopefully, in order to enjoy the films that we have in the cinematic universe. I don't know what your opinion or your thought on that is, but I was just thinking about that and thinking about that transition between those two characters. But with that being said, let's see, switching gears for a second. And it looks like we lost Jerome for a second. That's all right. But I'm gonna he'll make his way back and I'm gonna switch over to our next film that we had on tap, and he should be making his way back in a moment. By the time that happens, we'll be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp. So in speaking about this film, let's see, it looks like we might have him back. One moment. All right, 1 second, guys. There he is. Okay. All right. So I'll bring him back on. Okay. There we go. Hello, sir. All right. So we had just switched gears. I'll give you a second there. But we were switching gears to Ant-Man and the Wasp and talking about quantum mania and what we would have there. Of course, we're going to have Ant-Man and the Wasp back, but another caveat. Well, 2 caveats. We have Stature apparently joining Scott Lang in this film. So his daughter, who many folks that know the comics knows that she is destined to be a member of the Young Avengers, which throughout these Disney Plus series, we were just talking about, Miss Marvel, we have other characters that have already made an introduction with Wiccan and Speed and WandaVision. And we even had a cameo of it, believe it or not, guys, in Falcon and Winter Soldier with, I believe the character's name, I'm brain farting on it, Patriot, who was a part of Young Avengers, making an appearance there. He's the grandson of Isaiah, Black Captain America that we, were introduced to in that series. So with that being said, and even on top of all those things, guys, we have the villain of Kang the Conqueror, joining the series as well.
Which one's supposed to come in?
It's supposed to come in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah. I was hearing about it. Yeah, that would be.
And it's going to be. Again, brain farting on the name, but he is the lead actor from Lovecraft Country.
Yeah. That's. Hey, man, if they find a way to like tie that into like Apocalypse, that would be amazing. But I don't know if they're gonna do that yet.
I don't know, man.
I hope they do. That would be so fire.
Maybe down the line.
Do it.
Yeah, maybe down the line. I know, they're still trying to ease into, introducing mutants into this universe. But I mean, still, I didn't think we would ever get to Kang the Conqueror in a Marvel movie, because he is such He's a Fantastic Four villain, or a lot of times he is normally, in conflict, a lot of times with that team. So, with the introduction of that character, does that mean that it's providing a tease of what we can expect from Fantastic Four? Because he has some
and that
familiar.
was the last tease of this. The fourth,
Exactly. He has some familial ties
Yeah.
to the Fantastic Four. So, is that telling us how the casting may go for Fantastic Four based on who they cast as King the Conqueror?
What was it? I'm sorry, like I don't know. I don't know. Remember all the.
So,
What was he tied? How's he tied
if
to
I remember
family wise?
correctly, and
You tell me. I'd
and
have
I
to look it
will
up.
I will confirm this later. I will put it in the chat, not the chat, but I'll put it in the comments too. But if I remember correctly, he was a descendant of Reed Richards.
Oh,
In
I
the
got you.
comics. So
Because he's
that
in the
begs the
future
question.
coming back. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Exactly. So that
I
begs the
got you.
question, will they say that he's so far down the line that, they can explain, perhaps a casting choice that they have with Fantastic Four? Or are they telling us that they are going a completely different direction with their casting for Fantastic Four?
But wait a second, in the comics, I thought he was green or something. I thought he had like his face. I don't think he had. I think he doesn't even. He has like a different color. He's not even. I thought he almost looked like an alien, kind of like he had
And
like
you
this
guys
green.
can let me know in the
I
comments. As
remember
I
that he
said,
looked kind
I
of. He
recall
looked
that he was a
green.
descendant, but I want to say no. I feel like
I remember he
I
looked
believe
green.
that that was more. I know what you're saying, but I would say that that was more of an appearance in terms of how his gear and how his suit worked, not necessarily how he looked underneath the suit.
No, I know
Um,
there's a suit, but it looked like his face was still. I mean, I'll have to look at it again, but I remember the comics. He had like a green face. I mean, anyway, it's all good. I mean, they could figure something out, but yeah, I'm just wondering how they're good. If they could start that, or at least since they introduced him, and then later on they could tie that in, that would be amazing. But um, yeah, I'm wondering with what I want to know is, and I don't know which movie it's gonna be, or when are they gonna restart like the big bad villain? Is it gonna be him, or is it gonna be once Fantastic Four hits, are we going to get Galactus and he'll be the one that we're leading up to? I mean, it's going to be interesting. Who's going to be that person? Or it's going to be Doctor Doom? I don't know. It's going to be kind of hard to top Thanos in general. So maybe they're kind of making, giving it some time. But
no, I hear you,
I want to know
but
I want to know how they're going to build that up, or are they just going in? Because I feel like regardless, like I mean, of course they're not mentioning anything about a new Avengers movie, and that's probably not going to be for a while. But it's like they're going to have to eventually build up to another big bad guy.
they
So
will.
it'll
But
be curious.
I
I'm just
think
curious how they're gonna do that.
I was gonna say, I think it might be a combination of Kang, or they may try to, instead of trying to
Osborne. I
up,
was hearing that. I
or
was hearing
that,
that
but I'm
rumor.
saying, like, instead of trying to up the ante with another person to replace or take that mantle that Thanos had as the big bad, they may try to go in a different direction and have a group of people instead of it just being one person. So,
Yeah,
there's
that's
something to
true.
be said about that. They could go Masters of Evil and have a collection of these characters, these villains that don't bite the bullet or don't get killed in their respective films, and that they team up. Because I mean, can you imagine having,
Yeah.
King the Conqueror? I'm saying, can you imagine having King the Conqueror, Doctor Doom, and like all these characters working together as a group? I mean, that would be a big enough threat to warrant the Avengers. So, and I mean, sky's the limit. But I have a feeling that they're not going to try to repeat themselves by having
Yeah, but
another,
Galactus would
individual
be pretty
figure.
amazing. But I mean, if they had Galactus, I mean, if they're gonna bring in Fantastic Four, that means Galactus is coming. But when is he coming in? And they could bring Silver Surfer. I mean, I'm just saying. But you're right. It's gonna be, but it has to still build up. Even if it's a big threat that they're gonna build up again, I think eventually it's gonna have to. It's it's gonna have some sort of galactic,
Oh yeah, of course, of
influence. So it's
course,
like it doesn't have to
because
start off, but yeah, it doesn't have to start off with like, oh, I'm just a big bad, but yeah, you're right. I think they're probably going to try something different, and that would be cool to have like maybe a collective or something like that. But still, though, it's like they gotta like, I mean, really bring it because yeah, they got to be formidable on their own too. I mean, some of them are more
no, I
smarter like
get you.
as tacticians, but it's like you can be smart all day long, but like once all the technology's gone, it's like.
But I guess my thing is this. My
Like
thing is
Thanos
this
could
is
take all
that.
three. He took all three of the main guys,
But here's the
and
thing. Here's the thing.
they
You
couldn't
have
do
to.
anything without the stones.
I was gonna say, here's something you have to remember though. Like in thinking of the themes that we've had for many of the other phases thus far. Um, Not to say that Galactus, won't factor in. I do think that I do feel that he'll factor in, but I think that they might use him as an ultimate god down probably maybe phase 6, maybe. And that in thinking of phase 4 and phase 5, maybe how each of these phases have acted as kind of a theme. And it seems like very much in this phase of the franchise, we're talking about all these alternate universes. So it seems like the big thematic takeaway that has, factored in, we have this What If series, we have, WandaVision, we have Doctor Strange, we have Spider-Man, we have all these films that are dealing with, alternative versions of these characters. That I think the big thing is going to be this alternate universe and time travel thing, where that's why we have King the Conqueror, and it may provide us that opportunity, to get the Russos back.
And they gotta bring.
But hold on, let me finish.
Then they can bring Cable and
Let me
Apocalypse.
finish. Hold
Cable and Apocalypse,
on,
bro.
hold on. To bring back, the Russos, and because they have been quoted as saying they would love to do a Secret Wars movie. So we can get
true.
Secret Wars, and we can get the Beyonder, and we can get all these other characters in there. And then perhaps, all of that could lead up to Galactus. So who knows? But I just have a feeling that they are going to try to go a different way. I will say this. I remember you saying in a prior episode that you believe that maybe it was you or maybe it was someone else. I'm trying to remember who it was, but in either event, it was brought up that perhaps in the formation of the event, of the Dark Avengers, or even perhaps the Thunderbolts, since we're talking about all these teams that are forming, maybe in the event of those teams forming, that it provides the need for a new Avengers team to rise to take them down.
Yeah,
kind of what we have in very much what we have in Falcon and Winter Soldier, where you have a new Captain America, but it's not the Captain America that people that we should have. And so in that same way, because it plays similar to that in the comics with what we have with the Dark Avengers, where we have this team. Mind you, we don't have Norman Osborn, who created the team, but they can find a way around that with the characters that they have already, where you have this new Avengers team that comes up and is created, and they are, they present themselves to the public as heroes, but we know, underneath the surface that they do not operate that way. And when, as a way to combat, this team that, this powerful team, it's going to bring the need for, the Avengers that we've known, or new characters, to come together to form that new Avengers team to take them down and to, reclaim that mantle of the Avengers for the world.
Or they could bring in the X-Men or Fantastic Four. I mean, you have another team. I think. No, I think.
But see, that's
at
the
least
thing.
the West Coast
I think they're going to save them for Phase 5. I think Phase 5
I'm
is
saying
just
this
going to be
could
nothing.
tie into it, but this seems. I'm not saying there's the only way, but I'm saying, like, even if you're going to save them for Phase 5 or whatever, if you can plant the seed with Kang the Conqueror, and then and when you're doing time travel, Apocalypse and Cable are essential to that. I mean, some of the in this alternate. I mean, you can go crazy with all the alternate realities or whatever. But I'm just saying, like, even if it's not another Avengers, even though I would be great to show, like, I'm sure they're going to start planting the seeds for West Coast Avengers or whatever with She-Hulk, or, maybe Spider-Woman will be in one of these. Who knows?
Or who knows? They may save Phase 5, as I said, to do the mutants, and maybe in the appearance of the mutants, they may try to adapt the Avengers versus X-Men comic and have them go up against each other.
Well, that would be good. Yeah, of
knows?
course. But the thing is, another thing is, because of that whole, I guess, the controversy, you could say, of, like, everyone is revering these superheroes as being amazing, and the whole X-Men idea is, people hate them because they have powers and they're different. It looks like it could easily go to that direction by all the damage from all these events happening, and if you have more Civil War type storylines or whatever, just holding them accountable. So maybe that could be an easier way to transition. Be like, oh man, these superhero, whatever, So
For
I like
sure,
how
but
they're
we're going off
finding
a
a way.
tangent. I'm gonna moving on
Yeah,
because I know
no,
we were going off tangent a little bit. But okay, we have Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
that would be fire.
I
That should be
mean,
fire. Yeah.
it's James Gunn. I expect it to be to be entertaining. I know there's been a lot of quotes of what the story will be like. I mean, we left it hanging that Adam Warlock was still being made. Will he appear in this in this
Probably.
installment? We don't know. And the only reason being is because it's been quoted, James has been quoted as saying that a lot of the film is going to center around not Groot, but
Drax?
Rocket. It's going,
Oh no,
it's going to
Rocket.
center
Yeah.
around Rocket and how he came to be. So will that leave enough space for them to have Adam Warlock, figure into the story? We'll see. Maybe he's going to come later. So we have that. We have, let's see, after Guardians, of course, they had that introduction of the four Fantastic Four. I know, teasers. And I mean, we kind of went into detail about that, but this provides a good segue into the final story that we have, and that's just the idea that it appears that Blade, which was announced, this was announced, speaking of the other shows when I was at
the 2000
Comic-Con at 2019, that we will have a Blade make its way into the MCU with Mahershala Ali. There's been much details about when it's going to start shooting and what's going to happen with it, but now we have an indication in a story. Let me pull it up.
Superhero hype.
In a story, in a story by Hollywood Reporter, because they were talking about, it was actually as a side piece of them talking about the story about having a Black Superman being done, a film. They also alluded to the fact that they are, holding back on Blade and, taking their time with it. So with that being said, what are your thoughts on that and what to expect from it?
I just hope. I mean, I think it's great. Like I said, they cast it well. I mean, it's gonna be amazing seeing Mahershala Ali be Blade. I'm sure he's gonna train and do whatever. But I just like how they're finally bringing, tying that into everything. And like they haven't really, like I said, they haven't really explored that world of the supernatural. I mean, they've touched on it with Doctor Strange, sort of, but it's not. Right. That's not really like. I mean, sort of with Astral Plane, but that's more wizardry, mysticism. This is like. I mean, they can go into
give us
vampires,
the ability to do it with WandaVision. So
yeah. I mean, but really going into but that's still more I mean, I'm talking about more. Yeah,
Well, I'm saying
they need to bring Ghost Rider. They need to if they bring Ghost Rider back in there too. Like have I know they did that Morbius movie. Who knows how it's gonna go? But I want to see those dudes cross paths. I want to see Blade in a Spider-Man movie. Man. I want to see like and then I remember the X-Men was a Gambit. I think was he used to team up with Ghost Rider or whatever. So he could have. There's so many ways they could have these guys coincide, and just that element of with vampires and the supernatural, and that
and it's saying that the start date was originally going to be in September, so in the fall of this year, but it has been pushed back to July of next year. So that begs the question too. Fingers crossed that we have a legit, full-scale Comic-Con next year. Does that mean that
we'll probably get it? We'll probably.
I'm about to say. Well, no, I'm saying with it having it start in July 2022. If it's starting at the beginning of the month, maybe we'll get a sizzle reel of that iteration of the character at Comic-Con in their Hall H panel. I mean, the only reason why I bring that up is Marvel has been known to have films that have only been shooting for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and they already have footage to show. I'll never forget, speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, I mean, we were both there when they did Guardians of the Galaxy, shooting providing the sizzle reel. And I guess you can call it a teaser trailer of that. And they said, I mean, James said, well, no, it was the first one. I
remember. Maybe I wasn't.
Okay, you weren't there for that one. That's right.
Because I went 2015. Yeah, that was after the movie.
That's right. Sorry.
I remember the sizzle reel for the second one though.
It was 2014. So, with that film, they basically, James already had footage ready for that film to show at Comic-Con. And, they had only been shooting for 2 weeks, but they had, visual effects shots done, and they had footage. They basically showed that scene when they were doing the lineup. If you remember from the film, like they showed that in a couple of scenes from them being in the prison and some action sequences here and there throughout the film. But yeah, it only been shooting for like 2 or 3 weeks, and they already had like a sizzle reel of sorts to present. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that it actually legitly starts in July. So that way, if it starts in early July, we might be able to have something to see for this for that Blade film and what it may look like or what to expect. So go ahead.
I would say, lastly, what's interesting, and this is going to be an interesting test also, because obviously everyone's now, well, hopefully, more people are going back to the movie theaters. I mean, this is like the first time. I mean, we had, because of the pandemic, though, we haven't been 4 movies come out in a year, and next year you're gonna have another 4. So I love it. I think it's great, but at the same time,
everyone love it?
Well, the thing is, it's interesting to see, because I know they used to start off. I mean, first they started off with 2. And then they went 1, and then they kept doing like 2, and then eventually they started going to 3, and then they were kind of like mixing 3 with like TV series. But technically, think about it. This year, there's 4 movies, plus we have at least 1, 2, 3, or I think at least 4 shows. Well, at least you're gonna have 3. So that's almost like 7, almost like 7 movies, kind of, if you think about it, because those shows are kind of like miniseries or whatever. But
Right.
that's a real test. I think it's going to be interesting, because next year, and you're going to get 4. It's just kind of funny because, I mean, of course, obviously, I think people are still going to see these movies, but they're really packing them in for the fall. I mean, you got Shang-Chi in September, then you have Eternals in, was it November? And then you have Spider-Man No Way Home in December. So it's like, I guess that's enough breathing room to, I guess they figure people might watch it at home too. Then you got enough space to let these movies breathe. But yeah, man, I think it's incredible how they're doing this. You're getting 4 movies a year, and I wonder if that's going to be the standard now. And after next year, maybe we'll see.
We'll see. I feel like it's an asterisk based on the circumstances, because I mean, up to this point, I think the max that we've gotten is 3, and I feel like 3 is more than enough, because I mean, we're just talking about the films at this point. We're not even including the Disney Plus shows. So, if you're factoring in the Disney Plus shows, and I'm not complaining, I love to be able to, see TV and the or say streaming and the films, but for casual goers, it might be, I feel like, a bit much if you have that many films, just the films, on top of also having the shows. I feel like 3 is a nice number on top of having, the shows that you already have planned to release in between those releases.
But if you spread it out, I think if you spread it out every quarter, I mean, they kind of had to push it back. I guess I get that, the whole pushing it back, but also now they're really condensing it in the fourth quarter. I'm just saying, if they do continue just doing it like maybe every quarter, I think that's what, I mean, yeah, you don't want to overdo it. Maybe 4 would be the max. I don't know. We're going to see. But I think that's also why Marvel is consistent and they're winning, because they're always in your mind every year, as opposed to like DC kind of had, I mean, DC kind of is getting back into it, but they were kind of taking breaks, and or even like Godzilla, like say if you're trying to make a monster franchise or whatever, if you wait too long in between, you can start forgetting, like, oh, am I checking for this movie? So it's a little bit, you want to leave that there, but at the same time, if you're always like, oh wow, it's interesting enough, I want to see this. This is the continuation, and then you're like, you're continuing different stories every other year. You still can keep it, I guess, fresh and interesting. But
I
people
hear you,
can't
but
forget.
I
They can
guess,
also forget too. If they're like, wait, what? Why have we seen a sequel after like 3 years, 4 years?
no, I hear you. I guess my thing is, I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference of doing 3 versus 4. I just feel like 3 is a nice enough number of content. Because if we're just talking, if they just had the films going and not the TV shows, I would agree with you. But the fact that you already have a couple of a couple of series that are happening in tandem with that on streaming services, and you'll have more than one, because we have to remember it's probably going to be maybe at least 3 series as well that are running in tandem over the course of the year. I feel like that would be enough over the course of a year to kind of satisfy the appetite of people that are into what Marvel brings without it being like too much. I feel like 4 is just going is just a bit too much, and I feel like 3 might be that magic number in lieu of them having all those streaming shows that they are releasing, because I'm picturing that they're probably going to have 3 or 4 in addition to their movie releases over the course of the year. Because I mean, we didn't even get into we didn't get into the fact that they're doing a Moon Knight show. That's going to be happening in tandem with the movies.
She-Hulk.
We have a She-Hulk, exactly.
There's Marvel. Show. There's Ironheart,
Hawkeye,
Armor Wars.
Armor Wars. I mean, and they have more. That's just what they've announced so far.
Exactly.
I'm sure they have way more they haven't even talked about yet.
But also you got to remember, like, I totally understand. You don't want to oversaturate stuff, but I think you can get away with the TV shows and the movies in tandem because you're introducing these newer characters and they're kind of testing the water. So it's like, not everybody has Disney Plus, but if they have Disney Plus and then someone watches that, they're like, oh wow, this is Marvel, this is kind of cool. Maybe they might be like, oh, maybe I'll check out the movies now, or they can kind of cross pollinate. So, but yeah, I agree that you don't want to oversaturate, but if you spread it, if you have one every quarter or something, but like I said, because it's not the same actual. If it was just like Iron Man, say it was just 4 Iron Man movies, yeah, that would be ridiculous. We don't need to see the Iron Man 4 times. We don't need 4 sequels of Iron Man in 1 year. I don't even know if we need that many. But because they're different characters and cross pollinating, it's almost like I guess it's kind of similar to like sub-genre films that are the way I'm looking at it is like a studio that's just releasing a mix of different films throughout the year in their genre, from their wheelhouse, but they just happen to be interconnected, but they still stand alone on their by themselves. So
I hear you.
I guess can garner interest. So we'll see. Maybe, I mean, they're very cognizant of how audiences react too. I mean, you could tell, like I said, you could tell with some of the, I mean, I'm not trying to hate. I mean, I don't have a problem with a lot of these decisions, but you can see with some directors coming and then they go, and then they rotate within certain franchises, and then sometimes, we like what you're doing.
I'm glad you brought that back up because someone did. Well, I'm saying someone dug deeper into that, and if you think about it, if you guys really like look it up, it may very well be true how particular the Marvel is with their filmmakers. They provide you the space to be able to do your film, but if it doesn't work, like they don't keep you around, it seems like. So I remember.
But what is not working though? Because some of those movies still did well, but there's some, I don't know.
There's a point. Hold on. There's a point to why I'm saying that is for those films that have apparently, and then someone has highlighted this, and if you look it up, it is actually, if you investigate it, it's actually true. It seems like if a certain Marvel installment doesn't hit a certain rating on Rotten Tomatoes, that they are not asked to be back. And I think they said the magic number was like, I want to say like 90% or something. No, it was higher. It was like 90%. So like a lot of those movies that you'll see that, are less than I think it was either, I want to say it was less than 85%. So like anything that was like less than
yeah, but I'd be curious about the Ant-Man movies because Peyton Reed, he's coming back. I like those movies, but I don't think the second one got
the movies that were underneath, for the most part, that were underneath 85% on Rotten Tomatoes. So even if they were like 80%, the directors have not come back. Like they have not been asked to like do an additional installment.
I'd like to see the Ant-Man sequel and I don't know if that got like 90 something. I mean, I'm curious.
I don't think it got 90, but I think it just made by hair. It just in terms of Rotten Tomatoes. And then don't get me wrong, I love that franchise. I personally love that franchise, but I'm just saying in terms of how it performed with other critics overall. And I'll tell you what, I will find the article for
you. I'll look it up, but I think it's combo
people
stuff,
have highlighted that, and I want to say it was 85%. It may very well be a little higher than that, but there was a cutoff. And if you look back through the history of other installments in the MCU of those Marvel films, when they haven't hit that, those directors haven't been called back. And when they, do exceed that, they do come back to.
Yeah, but you're just looking at the critical acclaim. There's also I'm sure if it got a high rating and didn't do well at the box office, they'd be like, you're done too. So you need to say with the box office success.
Well, here's the thing.
There's movies who do well critically and don't always make that much money, but
I get that. But I was going to say, I'll put an asterisk. I will put an asterisk by Marvel because I will say, unlike many other films or other franchises, if a Marvel film has a high enough rating, I would say it's implied that they did, that they did well. I don't know too many of them, and I'll look back. I don't recall too many of the Marvel films that have a low rating or say had a high rating that, didn't, do very well at the box office. I feel like by saying that they, and I apologize if I didn't preface it with that, but if they have a high enough score, I would feel like it's implied that they, that they did well at the box office, because a lot of times if it doesn't have a super high score, it reflects, and I feel, what we've seen, that it ends up reflecting the box office. Unlike, other films that we see, sometimes you'll have films out there, especially like Oscar bait films that have, really high scores, or even like independent films that have high scores, that doesn't automatically affect or imply that movies, it's going to do in general. But I would say with Marvel films as a a unique example, when they have a high rating, they people are already going to see Marvel films anyway, but when it has a particularly high rating, it really will get eyes in front of it. So I apologize if I didn't preface it with that, but I would say with it having a high score, it would already be implied that it made.
But I'm just saying. But I'm just saying, besides implying, just saying, I think regardless, it's both of those. Like I said, if you see an example that happens where one of them, where the box office is there, like I said, it's not going to matter about. It can have 100%.
Well, even if that's the case,
most likely it would. Most likely,
the point is that they aren't asked to be back. That was our point. The point that
no, I know, but I'm just saying, regardless of that, like that is just as important. And I'm just saying, I'm not going to assume that. I mean, they have a good track record of like you were saying, these movies doing well if they have a high rating. But I'm just saying, like, you better believe it, they'll be gone. The critical acclaim person will probably be gone too. So
I don't know about that, but
it's a business, bro. It's a business, bro.
I will find the article for you. But as I said, it was an interesting article and an interesting point that was brought up about how that.
But if Black Panther 2 like makes $100 million, I'm sure they'll probably change the director. But that's very doubtful. I'm just saying. I'm sure it's gonna make another billion, but I bet you if that movie it makes like $100 million, they're gonna change directors. It's a business thing. It's business. In the end, it's business, man. So
I believe so, and we'll leave it off here. And I believe what you were talking about, you were telling, and I understand what you're saying. I guess what I was saying is that I know you were commenting on just how certain Helmers have not returned. So that was the point that I was bringing up.
Oh, I agree. I understand.
Agree. With that being said, before I let you go, Jerome, can you tell folks where they can find you, man?
So you can find me on my on Twitter or Instagram. Okay, JW Bourgeois 21 on Twitter, JW Bourgeois on Instagram. This is my personal one. I had to switch it up. You can find us on Move and Shake UNLTD on Twitter, Movers and Shakers Unlimited on Instagram, and definitely like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, Movers and Shakers Unlimited, and we'll be back to continue letting you guys know what's going on.
Debating, continue debating. So
it's always fun. We do this anyway.
We
didn't have a show
all the time. We even do this, even when we're not on the show. But
we do this while we're waiting in line in Comic-Con.
It's good though. We're not gonna always agree on everything. So with that being said, I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT, which you can see down below. And you can also find me at _ENT on Instagram. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Be safe out there. And of course, as I mentioned before, you know, in order to stay in, you know, keep track of the conversation of, you know, the topics that we talked about here on the show, you know, send us a comment, you know, not just in this video that you're watching, but you could also find us on those social media platforms that we mentioned, and use that hashtag TWNRMNSU, just to, you know, make it a part of that conversation that we were talking about with these episodes. Other than that, as I said, thanks so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see you soon, guys. Later.
Peace.